Hey, my name's James Nicholson. We had a big week this week. So much went on. Mortgage rates were cut. The King's Speech happened. We've got new leasehold rules and stuff like that coming through. But one of the biggest things was the Renters' Rights Bill. Now, this is to replace the Renters' Reform Act, which was the Conservative version. And this was mentioned in the King's Speech this week. It's one of their priority bills. They've got 40 bills, of which around 10 are drafts. This is not a draft. This is an active bill that they're going to be working on fairly quickly. And we'll probably start seeing real updates and substance on this in October. Now, this is a big, interesting bill. It covers something very controversial, which is rent control and Section 21. So I'm going to go into all the details on the Renters' Rights, what's it called? The Renters' Rights Bill. Confusing, all these different names. The Renters, let's put that on the board. That will help me then, right? So it's the Renters' Rights Bill. Previously called the Renters' Reform Act, that almost became law just before the election. Now, we're going to jump into this and more. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, do subscribe to the channel over there and hit the bell notification. I've got new news content every day. If you're a landlord, you want to invest in property, you just want to know what's going on in the property market, this is the channel for you. And while you're here, smash like, tickle like, do something to the like button. That helps me with the YouTube algorithm. It gets more views on the channel. It just means you're cool if you do it. So take a moment to do that. So, the Renters' Rights Bill. I'll probably get that wrong a few times over the next few weeks until I really understand what the new name is. But yeah, there's quite a few things here that are similar to the old bill. And that's what I want to go through. What is in here? Is this going to be a big impact on landlords? A lot of landlords are very worried about this already. And I'm going to tell you whether I think you should be. So the first big change is the same as the old bill, and that has rolling tenancies. Rolling tenancies. Now, I don't have a problem with rolling tenancies because there's a bit of a faff. Every year, the estate agent would earn a fee by saying to the tenant, hey, do you want to stay? We'd look at the rent and possibly increase it. This means that the tenancy just goes on forever. Now, there's a bit of protection in there for the landlord. The tenant has to stay for a minimum of 4 months. Then at any point after 4 months, they can give 2 months notice. So it's a minimum of a 6-month contract, which means that's good because look, let's just face it. Otherwise, you would get people that took property when they needed an Airbnb for a month. They would take the property and then just give notice and give it back. And it'd be a real nightmare for estate agents and everyone in the chain to manage. So it does make sure that you've got at least 6 months of a tenancy. Then it goes on to a rolling basis. I've got no problem with that because really the only thing we looked at is rental increases each year anyway. So we can still look at that, which we're going to talk about. Now, because of these tenancy agreements, this would be a nightmare if you run student accommodation. So student accommodation is exempt and will stay as it is, which is important for student landlords because they must get their property back at the end of the school year in order to get people in to start the next year. If there was any type of delay, that would be absolute nightmare for them. So that's important. Now, rent increases, which kind of goes with this. You can increase rent, obviously, but you've got to give 2 months notice. 2 months notice, that's fine. I'm happy with that. It's currently a month. Now it's 2 months. That doesn't make a big impact to me as a landlord. I'm not too fussed, but it does give the tenant that little bit longer to prepare for it. Here's another thing. You're only allowed to increase the rent once per year. Now, you can do more. I've never done more. In fact, sometimes I don't do it for a couple of years at a time. So I don't have a problem with that at all. So rent increases you can do once a year. You have to give 2 months notice. I don't understand why landlords are getting massively bothered by that one. So that's fine with me. This one is important. It's called the Decent Home Standards. Decent Home standards. And this is more to do with, look, you've got to rent a property that has a working boiler, doesn't have broken windows and stuff like that, is clean and tidy when they initially take on the property. That is important. Now, there's an ombudsman that's going to be there to stop the courts getting clogged up. We'll come to why in a minute. And the ombudsman is where the tenant can go if there's a problem with the landlord, and it will get dealt with far quicker. So, look, if a tenant comes to you and says, my boiler's broken, and you fix it, you're not going to go to the ombudsman. You'd have proof that you'd sorted it. But if the tenant came to you and said, my boiler doesn't work and you didn't fix it, which some landlords don't, right? They don't sort it out. It would go to the ombudsman. There's then a potential that they could freeze the rental payments. You wouldn't get rental payments in that scenario until you fixed the problem. That sort of stuff, I do think is fair. I do also think one of the problems that could be in there is mould, because a lot of tenants have mouldy properties because they don't open windows. And if they just open the window, I've had that I've had that once this year, and the tenant had moved from a hot country to this country, didn't realise, like they never had to deal with anything like that. So we had a look, we had to deal with it. Unfortunately, I had to decorate the property myself again, but it's fine, right? It cost me less than like 100 quid to sort out. It was not a big deal. And so this decent home standards will just mean you got to look after the properties. I don't have a problem with that. Again, I think as a landlord that's got more than 10 properties now, I think that actually gives me a bit of an advantage, because every property I buy, I like to buy them as a wreck, do them up, new kitchens, new bathrooms, new carpets, plaster them. And so when they take my properties on, they're always brand new anyway. So if this gets rid of some of the slum landlords, then I've got more advantage and I'll fill my properties much easier. So I don't have a problem with that, but that's something to definitely keep an eye on. Next is pets. So this was in the old bill. Pets, you've got to consider pets so they can write to you. You've got something like 42 days to respond. You don't have to take pets in all scenarios. If you've got a lease, for example, that prohibits them, but you do have to respond to them in a timely manner and give it fair consideration. I think that's fine as well. In fact, I found if you do get a tenant with pets, if you get the right tenant with pets, they often stay in the property a lot longer because it's more hassle to keep moving their cat or their dog and stuff like that. So I don't have a problem with that. Next one is the one that you're going to get worried about, and this is Section 21. So Section 21 is no fault eviction, and landlords are having a heart attack about this one. This means that if you want to get your property back for any reason, you can give a tenant 2 months notice. You don't have to go to court. It's much easier to get this dealt with, and you get your property back. It doesn't have to be for rent arrears or anything like that. It's just a simple way, and this gives landlords peace of mind. Now, some landlords have taken the mickey with this one and have been taking vulnerable people out of their houses, making them have nowhere to live, putting new tenants in and whacking up the rent at astronomical rates. And they've just been greedy, basically. So that's why Shelter and all these charities have a voice in this conversation, and why Section 21 is something that is frowned upon by lots of people. Now, I do understand landlords want that peace of mind. So the Conservatives in the Renters Reform Act, is that the name? Renters Reform Act, the old one, they tried to put Section 21 in. They couldn't do it because the courts weren't ready. I believe that when this comes around in October, that the courts will still not be ready. Labour will not be able to do this one. This will be a delayed completion. So these parts here will probably go through in the bill, and they'll say this part here will happen when the courts are ready, which won't be in 5 years, it won't be in 10 years, and it will probably never happen, that part of it. I just don't see that happening. Or if it does, they're going to change how you can get rid of a tenant. You'll have more rights as a landlord. You'll have a different way to get people out. It won't be as bad as people think. I really don't believe that. Next is rent control. And so this is a threat that has been around from Labour for a while, especially in London. Sadiq Khan is saying he wants to put rent controls in. Other places have done it. Scotland tried this in COVID. It didn't work. What it did was reduce the rental stock, and there were hundreds of people viewing each property in many cities in Scotland, causing chaos. This has also been tried in New York. It didn't work. It's tried in Dublin and didn't work as well. So this is something that I think the people that are fighting on behalf of landlords will lay out the case as to why you can't do this. You're going to reduce the rental stock even more. When you're already pushing landlords out, you're going to cause a fact that, yes, you might control the price of the rent, but the lack of stock will be a much bigger problem and people won't have places to rent. So I think rent controls is something that will be talked about. I think, as with Section 21, these two are the biggest worry for landlords. I don't think you need to worry too much. I don't think these are going to be implemented anytime soon. I do think the other things are, but I think there's workarounds, and if you're a good landlord, I don't think you get many problems. In fact, this might push out some more landlords and make your life a little easier. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have I missed anything? What do you think? Do you think this act is going to go through quite quickly? Thoughts, opinions and comments below. As always, do smash like, do subscribe to the channel. Check out all the other content on my channel, including this video right here.